Well, if you could sum up the mission that Jesus gave to his followers before he ascended to his Father, what would you say? What would you say I need some slides up here. Here we go. Doesn't seem to be working. Andrew, can you grab something going there? What would you say it would be? This mission of God that he gave to his early followers. I asked the staff that on Tuesday, and they wrote down a little sticky note and put it up there for them. Next slide. And a whole range of different responses seemed to come through for that. And while the different words that were up there, effectively the essence of all of that is the same. Different verses were chosen, different ways of communicating that, because Jesus, after all, put the mission of God in a whole bunch of different ways. But he kind of sums it up in different places. So some of the verses there speak about what's called the Great Commandments. When one day Jesus was asked by a leader, Jesus, can you tell me what life is all about? After all, there's like 613 commandments. 248 of them are positive, 365 of them kind of negative, what we're not meant to do. It just all gets too much for me. It's like way too much information. Can you just bring it down to a bite-sized piece of material? And this is what Jesus said. The next slide. One of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening, so he asked, of all the commandments, which of this is more important? Next slide. Jesus answers what that is. The most important commandment is this. Listen, O Israel, this is going to help me out. Thank you so much. You're my best friend today. Listen, O Israel, the Lord your God is one and the only Lord, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. In other words, God and God alone needs to be the very center of our life. Everything ripples from Him. Everything revolves around Him. That we would find our security in Him, our identity in Him, our purpose, our meaning. That our schedules, our resources, everything that we're about, that we do in our work, our home, our community, would all come around this love for God. Jesus sums it up. And then He continues. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. Not about ourselves. Jesus says about others. I want you to sacrifice your time, your resources, your abilities for the sake of others in the world. Don't get caught up in your own preferences and all these different things that come to mind. And it shouldn't surprise us, should it? I mean, God's heart has always been for others. He wants all people to come to repentance. He's an outgoing God, loving, compassionate God. And suddenly, out of all the fuzziness of these 613 commandments, Jesus brings it together and just says, but love God, love others. And some of the staff, that's the direction they headed as they spoke about the mission of God to us. Others spoke about the Great Commission. Here we go. That Jesus came and told His disciples, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples. The reason it's bold there is scholars say that's the main driving commandment that Jesus is giving. Everything else revolves around that. It's kind of the way we make disciples. So these other ones are in circles. Therefore, go. We make disciples by going and proclaiming. Make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. That they would find their identity in who Jesus is and live out that identity to others. And then we would teach these new disciples to obey all the commands that I've given you. So making disciples. Another thing the various staff members threw in, that this is what we're about, and we make disciples by going and by baptizing and by teaching them. And you start to see that there's all these different elements coming through. There's kind of this upward direction. We've received, the authority comes from Jesus and about this love of God that we have. But we reach out to others, and we need to make sure they grow. And we do this all in the context of community. Even this command here was given to not just a disciple, but the disciples, because they're this new community of people. So the thing's always, how do we make disciples? And I guess, what is a healthy disciple? And as I sum it up, I tend to use these 4 arrows here that you've seen this morning. That we come in this context of worship because we want to focus on God and revolve our lives around God. Healthy disciple connects with others because we're not just made little islands to ourselves. Jesus brought us in the context of this community, this new race, this new family, to grow from the inside out. That we would come as we are, but we wouldn't stay as we are. And we would impact others. This is what a healthy disciple is. This is what a healthy church is. All of these things coming together. And throughout history, you can see how the early followers of Jesus got it. They came and they gathered, and often in little homes and different places around, and they read God's word together, and they were in awe of who God was. And they reset their lives around God and God's purposes, and allowed the Spirit of God to nourish their soul and their minds and their hearts and prepare them for engagement in the world. They would come together to connect with others. Again, they weren't just little islands to themselves, but they realized that Jesus was bringing them to be in this new community of people. And so they radically stepped in. In fact, in the New Testament, you often find 100 times this little phrase, one another. Love one another, pray for one another, encourage one another, exhort one another, all these different one another's, 100 of them throughout the New Testament. Huge. Because Christianity was meant to be expressed to each other, that we would gather and we would, function together as a family. And these early Christians gathered and did these things to each other. And they connected with very diverse groups of people. That was a radical thing at the time. In the Roman world 2,000 years ago, people were very class conscious. There were the wealthy people and there were poor people. There were slaves and there were free. There were true Jewish people and there were kind of like half-bred Jewish people. They didn't want to mix together. The early Christians stepped in and they displayed radical love to bring a community together of rich and poor, of slave and free, of Jewish and Gentile, all these different ethnicities, Roman citizenship, non-Roman citizenship. They all came together, this church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. They didn't just come. They didn't just connect, but they grew. And they'd come from all sorts of backgrounds, these kind of dysfunctional, messed up backgrounds, but they came just as they were. But the thing was, they didn't stay just as they were. The Spirit of God began to engage them from the inside out, and their thinking changed, and their values changed, and the way they looked at the world began to take on very different perspectives. Some of the shame and the guilt they had from their past was replaced with a newfound identity and security in their relationship with Jesus. And throughout the early church, there was a context where everybody was growing. Nobody was left behind. Nobody was stalling, but it was kind of this expectation that everybody, regardless of how long they had known Jesus, would continue to grow and express their faith. They wanted everybody to grow, regardless of wherever they were in their spiritual journey. And then impact. They radically turned their world upside down. One of the big questions historians often ask is, how is it that this group of 120 believers, it's just 120, followers of Jesus when Jesus ascended into heaven, how could this group of 120 believers within just a few generations become the known group leading the world by the 3rd, 4th century? How in the world could that ever happen? That this little Jewish sect that was so misunderstood, that was so under-resourced, how could that ever happen within a couple of generations? A letter is being found by archaeologists where the Roman Caesar, the 300 AD, his name was Julian Caesar, asks some others around this. And he gets effectively kind of a bit of a marketing campaign because he's looking at Christianity and he sees Christianity just blossoming. And he looks at his own pagan religion that he's kind of promoting and he sees it as kind of declining. And he tries to work out, why are we declining? And Christianity, with all its little resources, is just like blossoming everywhere. What in the world is happening? And does this little kind of, marketing survey study, I guess. And this is his research as he writes to the priests and the religion that he was promoting. I think that when the poor happened to be neglected and overlooked by, Caesar's priests, the Christians observed this and devoted themselves to benevolence, to love. The Christians support not only their poor, but ours as well. Everyone can see that our people lack aid from us. We don't do anything with them. Never even thought about it. But this Christian community, they do like radical expressions of love as they impact the world around them. In fact, by AD 50, Christian community just in Rome alone was supporting 1,500 destitute people every day. All around the Mediterranean churches, there were different food programs being set up, hospitals and orphanages being built, available to everyone. It didn't just have to be believers. Radical love, radical impact was being displayed. And throughout the centuries, followers of Jesus have ministered to billions of people. They've been at the forefront of civil rights movements, the elevation of the status of women, the buildings of hospitals and universities. Throughout the years, they've influenced art, political theory, human rights and dignity, education, compassion, and the love of enemies. And throughout their loving actions, this group of 120 people spread throughout the known world because of their radical love. You see, they were making disciples who came for worship, who connected in community, who continued to grow from the inside out and continued to impact the world as they dreamt and as they allowed the Spirit of God to use them. GCC was birthed with that same DNA of the early followers of Jesus. And many of us here weren't around when GCC began. But a bit of a memory look in time to go back and reminisce. Here's a little video about our history.
We've come a long way as a church, so it's about time we had a little history recap. In 1981, led by Pastor Terry Calkin, a group of believers started meeting together and eventually went on to become Green Lane Christian Centre. By 1985, we were having church services in the town hall. Soon came the need for a building of our own, and in September 1988, the current auditorium on Mariwa Road was opened. The church has outgrown its facilities over the years, and in 1996, the stage was extended. Large office spaces have been added to the original building, and a cafe and childcare centre were officially opened in 2002. With outward mission as a main focus of the church, we planted ministries in India, Tanzania and Papua New Guinea, and produce a TV program called Word for You that has a growing audience here in the UK and Africa. It is now in its 21st series and has almost hit the 300 episode mark. Over the years, there have been many productions and outreach events here at GCC. Some are a little embarrassing to look back on. But others have been very successful.
Auckland Church has set up the country's only drive-through manger experience.
Amongst all the tinsel and trade of Christmas, we feel the real message of Christmas can be presented in a modern and a relevant way.
Everything we do is focused on helping to lead people closer to Christ. Today we celebrate and are grateful for the church's solid foundation as we heed God's call to go beyond.
So GCC was birthed with this vision. It continued what hundreds, thousands, millions of believers have done since the beginning of time to continue to make disciples that grow in all of these different directions. Upward, outward, withward, inward, all these different ways that would happen. Now, today I'm talking about the year ahead. And it's part of, a developing vision for our future. But the first thing I want you to realize is that our mission is the same as the original mission. Always has been. It must continue to be. And often we can confuse mission and vision, but vision is just the way that mission is shaped today. But it always has to be that original mission that Jesus gave to the church 2,000 years ago. It just continues into 2015 and onwards in the way we express that. Second thing I hope you're kind of picking up on is that healthy disciples, healthy churches journey in these four directions. That they come, worship, they connect in community, that they grow from the inside out, and they impact the world. And you're going to see that kind of all around the place in weeks to come. In fact, when you leave today, we'll give you a little fridge magnet, because I want to keep that in front of you. That when you go to the fridge and you're grabbing the milk, you kind of see, oh, yeah, I need to be like committed to behaviors in each of these, because this is what a healthy disciple is all about. What a healthy church is all about. So just kind of keep that in front of us. And at the end of today's talk, I'll talk about just a simple choice for us to make in each of these ways too. Now, there's nothing radical that I'm talking about yet, is there? You know, we can all go, that's pretty easy. It's good. All biblical, all kind of like stable, all kind of there at the moment. But you see, this is where the problem tends to come through. Because my observation is that we often, we can all agree on this, is what healthy disciples are all about. What tends to happen, though, is that we often take any one of those and assume that there's one way to do it. I saw that happen a lot in the meet and greet times. As I met with over 30 different groups and heard about our church and what was happening and different ideas for the future, that often there would be this idea about we need to do it this way, and when people do that this way, then everybody can grow, for instance. So let me just take an example of this grow one here. Sometimes people would say, well, we would like to be able to, when I grew as a Christian, I used this particular resource, and it was a great Bible study and helped me understand God's Word and really transformed me from the inside out. Could we promote that to everybody and make sure that everybody goes through that resource, and then when they come out the other end, they'll be just like me? And then somebody else in the room or in another group would say, well, no, I didn't use that resource, but I used this resource over here, and it really helped me to grow. Could we make sure everybody goes through this resource, and then it will kind of lead to everyone growing? And then I get an email from someone saying, well, don't want to harm the person that said this other thing, but I tried that. I was really confusing. But I found this other thing really helpful. Could we promote that to everyone, because it'll be really, really good? And what I found tends to happen is that we have this idea that there's just one approach to help us grow. There's one little product or one little program that's going to do that. And I think what it tends to ignore is that we're a diverse group of people. We all learn differently. And there's some things that will ignite spiritual growth, and others it'll be different. But that should be expected in a diverse community, right? And the thing is, we're all at different stages of growth too. In fact, there was some research done around over 1,000 churches recently, saying how there's four very different groups of people at spiritual journeys. So some are exploring Christianity, so they just need a real helping hand as they come around things. Some are baby Christians who need a bit of hand-holding. If you just think about my own kids, 4 kids, 2, 4, 6, 8, early stages when they were babies, they needed, to be spoon-fed. They couldn't do it themselves. Early Christians are like that too. But as, children get older, somebody's still cooking for them, but they can sit at the table and eat their own food. It happens in spiritual realm too. People can start to feed themselves as long as somebody cooks something up, encourages them to eat healthily. And then you finally mature as a Christian when you're kind of able to cook up something yourself. You just need some encouragement to remind you what a healthy diet is. And I wonder if got me thinking, well, what if we could make sure that we didn't have a one-size-fits-all thing around spiritual growth, but to realize that everybody is often at those different stages. Everybody connects with things quite differently. But a one-size-fits-all thing, but that's not going to really work for us. The problem also came through around this thing of worship. This was a pretty hot potato here at GCC. I would ask people their ideal service. And some people would lean in and just with great enthusiasm would talk about, well, just a service where we can sing these old favorites together. And, because these songs of the past, there's dripping and good theology. And I still remember singing them, back in my wedding in the past and funerals of loved ones. And they would talk about baby dedications and baptisms and different services and just having a bit of quietness because life is so busy. Might be kind of this picture in their minds. And then other people would talk about a picture that seemed to describe more like this type of deal. They'd say, well, actually, I understand all that too, but I just like something that's a little louder and a little bit more immersive, where I can just express what's in my heart to God. Hearing all these things about God, I just want some space and some time to be able to express that in this immersive environment where somebody's leading me through that. And they would talk about the songs, new songs that were engaging their hearts through that. Songs that meant something to them in their baby dedications and their baptisms and their wedding that had been or wedding to be that they were like to be there. But they're very different styles. They're not necessarily generational. I mean, you've got the same generation really expressed in both of these pictures, but they're very different styles. So it started to be this, well maybe again, there's not a one-size-fits-all thing here. Because really churches throughout history have had very different style of singing in their services when they've come to worship God. And people throughout different countries, missionaries go overseas and services in different countries all express themselves very differently, different style of singing and cultures, whole range of things. So again, what if we didn't have a one-size-fits-all model when we came to services and to worship, but we realized there's a whole range of different ways that we can express worship to God. Some songs are hard for people to sing. Some songs have different melodies that different generations, different groups of people struggle with. Some songs are just too loud for people whose ears kind of struggle with different instruments. Others, kind of like the other way around again. So some it's kind of like too quiet, just I can't engage. Others going, I just need it kind of amped up a bit to really feel like I can be included and immersed in what's happening. And it's a little hard to kind of blend all these things together. This is, what if we could provide something a little different? Realizing that there are people here that listen to Southern Star, people here that listen to Rima, people here that listen to Life FM, people here that listen to a whole range of different stations altogether, all different musical tastes, but we're all trying to come and express worship to God ourselves. The problem is that we often imply that there is one right way to do this, one right style to express worship. I don't think there is. It would kind of be like, like Toyota saying, we have the car that everybody needs to get from A to B. The one vehicle that's going to help every single person from here. But Toyota doesn't do that. They kind of say instead, actually, there's a whole range of vehicles because everyone has different needs. Everyone's at different stages. There's the Previa, the real family mobile for people to get from point A to B. There's the, Yaris, smaller car to get from point A to B. And then there's the, commercial vans and the Hiluxes and all these different cars. And then you finally choose that, and you got to choose like your model and your engine size and the transmission and automatic, manual, and the fuel type and all these options. Because Toyota realizes, well, everybody's different. Diversity. And diversity is good. It's not just one vehicle. But oftentimes what we do in churches is we say there's one style for each of these arrows. And what happens as a result is we start to limit our reach of people to people who like that style, who grow that way, who connect that way, who respond to the impact of that style too. But what if we didn't have to be restricted? But what if we realized that actually there can be a range of things in front of us? And what if we said, well, we're a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. And as we live out the gospel together, we realize that it includes, coming and worshiping and connecting and growing and impacting. But we're going to do that in diverse ways because our city is full of diverse groups of people. We're a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. So what do you think about the diversity around our city? Within a 25-kilometre radius of GCC, and people travel actually wider than that in our church, but just bring down to 25 kilometres, about a 20-minute drive on a Sunday, there are 147,833 people. Huge, isn't it? Over 1.1 million people within a 20-minute drive of here on a Sunday morning. Break that down a bit further to look at the diversity. Within a 25k radius is 570,000 Europeans, 290,000 people of Asian descent, 184,000 Pacific peoples, 118,000 Maori. Diverse communities of people. These diverse communities are already within our church community, which is fantastic. Generationally, there's diversity too, isn't there? Within a 25k radius of us, there's 85,000 children under the age of 5. Huge growing figure. What does it look like to impact them, to grow them, to connect them? 150, almost 6,000 5 to 14-year-olds. Huge figure, once again. 84,504 teenagers. How do we reach out to them, grow them, allow them to worship, allow them to connect? Our approach probably changes in each of these, right? Been looking at this kind of the group that might be called the new old. We want to be called seniors anymore. You know, that 65 to 79 bracket, 92,171 people in that bracket. Huge. But maybe the way they come and worship and grow and connect and how we reach out to that group is probably different to the under 5s. Probably different to the younger families. But we want to be a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. Also within a 25k radius of us, there's 371,766 people who express no religion. 159,000 other faiths. People here like Steph and Dave, who at this stage aren't Christians. Somebody, neighbor invited them next door to come to an alpha group, started to engage. Well, you can imagine what it looks like to reach out to Steph and Dave. All these faces up here, all fictional stories, but you're going to be hearing a little bit about them today and over the weeks ahead. Stories about what does it mean to be a church of diverse communities who reach out to these diverse groups of people to help them grow in different ways, worship in different ways, connect in different ways, to impact people who are just like them in our church family. The man. So this is kind of where Go Beyond steps in. We want to go beyond where we are right now to reach out to people in our city, to build on the DNA that began this place and to go beyond where we are in our worship, to go beyond in connecting, to go beyond in our spiritual growth strategies, to go beyond in reaching a diverse group of people within our city. So let me kind of break that down a little bit. I'm going to ask the ushers to give out these Go Beyond booklets. And I'm going to carry on talking while they give those out now. And in here, you'll see a whole bunch of different initiatives. Now, this is what we're looking at over the year. So I should say right from the beginning, you're not going to see these things happening like next week or all of them next month or all of them like 6 months even from now. We're talking about over the whole year. So some of these might not take place till like month 10 or month 11. But I want to give you the plan for the year ahead, and I'll communicate an awful lot of where we are up to with these things. And each of these is going to require an awful lot of more communication as well. But I want to give you kind of everything that's in my mind. As a team, we're meeting, we're shaping our team around this because we're very adamant. We want to step in and ensure that we're growing as a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. So let's imagine each of these faces of people within our church community. And obviously these faces can be multiplied by over 1.1 million because that's the people within a 25k radius of us. But these are some of the types of people that we're looking to reach. So let's kind of break that down a little bit. So let's think about the growth strategies. You can kind of flick to that part of the booklet. Let me talk to those for a moment. So here's the first part. We want to reach out to some of these kids in front of us. And so here we have, where am I? So we have Jack and Zoe and Noah here in the picture. What does it look like to put something intentional in place for their faith formation? So, here we have, a new curriculum. There's going to be, coming around the biblical story, but partnering with parents. And I'm really excited about some of the new curriculum we're looking at. It's going to anchor people in Scripture, but all with this desire to unleash biblically anchored, Christ-centered, community-connected world changes, equipping them from the inside out for future. Along with that, we have this idea called Home Center. In Home Center, there will be this thing that we call milestones. Effectively, what that means is we'll have kind of a little hut in the foyer, months to come, and we'll be contacting parents around each milestone in a child's development. So if you have a 3-year-old, you'd be kind of getting contact from us to say, hey, your child's now 3. We'd like to teach you what it looks like to be able to do a blessing on your child. You can swing by. We've got a CD here with some videos about how you do that. Here's a book you want to read through, seminar you might want to come to around that, because we want to resource you as parents to help your 3-year-old. Or child might be 14. We want to come around that and say, hey, your child's now 14. This is what this discussion looks like around faith. This is kind of where your child's at, or this is what this sex talk might look like. We want to help you in that dialogue of some of the questions, things that are happening in your child's life, and resource you with that around the milestones in this journey, the faith map in a child's life. Another one here, and I'm only just going to be touching on these little snapshots. Come and talk more about each of these in more detail. Here's Steph and Dave, as I said before, just exploring Christianity. We've been doing Alpha as a church for many years, going to continue doing that because of this ability to connect people who are exploring Christianity, people like Steph and Dave, exploring that, finding that a great opportunity for them. Here's Solomon, who's 34-year-old, lives in Royal Oak. He's a builder. But while he's a Christian, he has kind of stalled in his life, and particularly around sharing his faith with co-workers and his mates on the building site. But recently, another person from GCC started to have lunch with him, and just been dialoguing through that struggle. And Solomon's starting to find through some kind of next steps mentoring that there's some help for him to be able to share his faith with others. And just taking some courage through some help from friends around. There's another group here called Applied, which is a midweek church-wide intensive Bible study weaving together faith and practice taught by scholars and specialists throughout the city. So be here during the week. Again, just to go, there's people here who are growing Christians, but they don't need, to be, spoon-fed everything, but kind of need the kind of level to grow a little bit so they can take initiative to come along to other things and extend their mind in a whole bunch of different ways. Leadership training initiatives, you can read those too, around a different academy for our emerging leaders and a whole range of different aspects as part of our leading leadership training initiatives. And then lifelong learning. Really excited about this. Realizing again, often people are at this stage where they don't need somebody to feed them anymore because they're not baby Christians. They need to be encouraged and handed some resources so they can grow themselves. One of those, which I'm super excited about if you didn't see that already, is Right Now Media. This is available from this afternoon. And so 11 o'clock today, if you're in our database, you receive an email telling you how you can get Right Now Media. Effectively, it's 8,000 videos, like TV on demand, that are for children right through to older, mature Christian leaders, resources to help you grow in your spiritual journey. Here's a little video, and this is all, by the way, free for all of us here at GCC too.
The screen. It's everywhere. Your home, your office, your pocket. It's anywhere you go. Today, there are more internet-connected devices in the world than people. Our church now has the awesome opportunity to use these screens to unleash people for ministry. With Right Now Media, every member of GCC can watch biblical content from teachers like Tim Keller, Francis Chan, Max Lucado, Dave Ramsey, Margaret Feinberg, Matt Chandler, Eric Mason, Andy Stanley, Bill Hybels, Gary Thomas, David Platt, Phil Vischer and Louis Giglio in 3 powerful libraries for every area of ministry. The Bible Study Library features a wealth of video-based material for personal and group Bible study, covering topics like parenting, finances, and discipleship, as well as youth and children's videos. This is a powerful resource for all ages, and with content from publishers like David C. Cook, Thomas Nelson, Zondervan, Bluefish TV, Crown Ministries and Tyndale, everyone in the church has instant access to an incredible variety of biblical teaching. Every area of ministry will benefit from the customizable training library, a revolutionary new way to grow and develop pastors, staff, and volunteer leaders. These online video-driven training posts bring leadership insight from well-known pastors to small group leaders, youth teachers, children's workers, anyone who's serving in the church. We can customize these pre-built training posts and even upload our own video teaching. And the Leadership Events Library gives our leaders access to leadership teaching from innovative conferences like Right Now, Catalyst, Verge, Leadership Network, and Echo. It's a great way for leaders to be encouraged and inspired by some of the most effective leaders in the church. Not to mention, an economical and travel-free way to attend leadership conferences. These 3 libraries with over 8,000 video sessions can be watched anywhere, anytime, making Right Now Media a rich and diverse resource for everyone in the church, with the ability to equip cell groups, children, youth, married couples, parents and leaders. Right Now Media, unlimited online video resources helping everyone grow here at Green Lane Christian Centre.
And so that's our gift to you to kind of get started. So 8,000 videos and growing. And just like TV on demand, Lightbox or that kind of thing, but Christian arena for that. Because we want everybody to have resources in their hands so they can watch at home in groups. We'll be using that ourselves in our new series we're kicking off. We'll be throwing different videos up there too, so you can access those from Right Now Media. And so when you get that email today, if you're on our database, you can just link in, start watching those, knock yourself out this afternoon, tonight, stay up the whole night, starting to go through those 8,000 videos. Might take you a few months, but you'll get there. If you're not currently on our database and you want to receive that, which I would imagine all of us do, just go to the reception desk after the service, put your name down, and then through the week we'll send an email out to you as well, so you can sign up for Right Now Media too. I'm committed to ensure every single person within GCC has what they need to take next steps spiritually. I don't want anybody here to stall. I can't grow for you, but I can ensure that we have something in place for each stage of spiritual growth. Whether it's a little bit more relational, kind of hand-holding, mentoring, right through to just providing resources to help you self-feed through what's necessary. But imagine a church that, where no one stalls. Everyone's growing. A church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. With me so far? Okay, so the next one, let's grow. But there's another 3 arrows that we want to talk about together too. So let's look at this come one, the one around worship. See, once again, the problem that I saw in the meet and greets, as I said earlier, was that this is a bit of a hot potato. We tend to think through things differently, and what one person says is kind of their style of coming, the ideal environment for them to worship, very different to another person over here. So again, what if we can provide different style services that people can come to? Not generationally specific, but just upfront about this style is kind of like this, and this is where the volume is, and this is what to expect, and the style down here is a bit like this. Now, we already kind of do that already. There's our 6:30 services, very different to our 9 and 11 o'clock services. But from next week, it'll be the same sermon at all 3 services, because we want everybody to be on the same page. As we study God's Word together, we want to allow that to shape us, and then in community together to be able to dialogue around that. Then during term 2, don't have a date yet, we're just little logistics for us to come around, but sometime in term 2, and I'll communicate where we are and how this is coming together, we'll have a different style at our 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock services. And you'll be able to come to either or just stay with one. But you'll be able to identify what that is. One will have some, old favorites from time to time. The other will be perhaps a little edgier than where things are right now, but you'll know which one you're coming to. And it means that you can invite friends who like that same style as well without having to feel any cringe factor where it might be a little bit different. So Roger here, who's 65, he actually prefers more the reflective service style. That's the odd favorite in there from time to time. Wants to invite other friends to that service as well. Connie here, single mum, just kind of new in her faith. She wants something a little edgier to come along to, just new songs of praise, the songs that she would typically listen to, but Christian voice to those. She's come along to that service. Different groups of people, but all being able to come and express worship to God and being in awe of who God is. Another part, an artistic hub. Throughout, and I know I'm going fast here, so changing gears, moving on, into the next part. The artistic hub, throughout hundreds of years, Christians have led the way in art. Not so much the last few decades. And often when art is produced, it can be, some people see it a little cheesy or a little kind of pushed into something. But what if we can really pull artists together, help them to grow, and empower them to even gift art back to our city that inspires, intrigue around the gospel, imagination around what community looks like, and the fulfillment of hope in a pretty depressing world. So we brought Juanita Madden onto our team this past week to start to be a magnet for artists, to be discipling artists, and then a lot of art through the context of our services that will help us worship and grow and connect and reach out to other people as well. Really excited about what can happen there in the times to come. And then new generation environments. Elijah here is 10 years of age. His parents don't come to GCC, at least not yet. But Elijah, comes along. He had some friends who were coming here, really feels part of this church community. And the reason he does is because in the future there are these new generation environments that are purpose-built for him. He realizes when he comes in, he's not just like this, tack-on thing going on, but the church really wants new generations to grow and develop. So they've put significant resources into those spaces and what's happening in those spaces. And so a whole bunch of different ways that might look like. Trying to be, colorful and creative in how we might do a range of things. But making sure that this is a space for kids, just like Elijah, so that he can grow in a purposeful environment, because we want to unleash people like Elijah to be biblically anchored, God-centered, community-connected world changers. We want to remove obstacles for him to be able to grow as well. Remember, we have like 85,000 children under the age of 5 and 156,000 children 5 to 14 within a 25-kilometer radius of us. It's huge. Let's step out and make a big difference with them too. Imagine a range of vibrant worship gatherings. Imagine a hub for artists that raises gospel intrigue. Imagine unleashing a generation, a new generation to come that would be these mature Christians. That's the grow part and the worship part. And to connect. We want to bring people into community because we're a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. We need to connect, not just be little independent islands to ourselves. So here are some things we're looking at there. Cell groups, which, as you already know, lots of cell groups already. We just want to increase the participation of those, about 20% throughout the year. So next week when you come, we'll have opportunity for anyone here that's not currently in a cell group to be able to connect either into an existing group or lots of new groups as well. Now, to help remove obstacles, because we realize different obstacles for people, one of those is for young families when they have children, really hard for a couple to get out. They can get a babysitter, but there's a big cost to that. So over this term, we're going to take care of the babysitting costs for young families because we're so, and we really want people to be part of a cell group. And so if that is a helpful thing for you, we'll explain next week how that's done. You'll get to choose your own babysitter that you would normally use. We'll just reimburse for that around kind of a set rate that you can see ahead of time. But we want you to be in a cell group. And so during term 1, we'll provide that. And we'll have different resources during this term to engage in our Eastergram series as well. A great way for people to connect, cell groups. Ethnic events. We have a ton of these going on already. Often we don't hear what's really happening. I just heard about next month, our Burmese group is trying to get 200 or 300 different Burmese together throughout our city to come together. Our Russian group's trying to reach 10,000 Russian people in Auckland. We have our Nigerian group. We have all these different groups who make up GCC, continuing to encourage what's already happening within those contexts. Home Centre. I'm really excited about this one. This is kind of where that faith formation comes out of. But also within Home Centre is a place resourcing couples in their relationship. So beginning from term 2, we'll have a monthly date night challenge, wanting to find different healthy habits to put into the home. So here again is Steph and Dave. They've been, at Alpha exploring Christianity. Hear about kind of a relationship series. Step into that, and just found that this date night challenge is helping them to talk with each other about where their relationship's at and where God fits into that relationship. Rather than being just the ambulance at the bottom of a cliff as a church when it comes to marriages and parenting, we want to provide proactive resources, getting healthy habits back into home as they should be. So that's around couples, but it's also around parenting. Solomon, picks up on a campaign just to help him engage with his 4 kids in a more significant way than where he is right now. And just putting healthier habits back in home so Solomon can excel as a dad in significant ways. And be a whole bunch of other things we'll talk about later as it relates to Home Centre. But imagine healthy habits forming in relationships and parenting. It's huge if we can pull that off. People doing life together in life-changing relationships. Diverse communities living out the gospel together. That's our connect arrow. That's what healthy disciples connect together. And finally, impact. We want to impact these diverse communities too, right? And so we're going to continue with a range of impact ministries. We have English classes are back this week. We have a couple of hundred people who learn English here during the week. 100 of them in Bible studies. They want to grow like 700 people learning English. It's fantastic. We have our outreach partnerships, CAP, women's events. You can see all of those there. Continuing all of those, refueling those, ensuring we're helping people take next steps through those things. In addition, in September or October, we'll have something called City Serve, where we really blitz our city and the various suburbs around with specific projects that will bring good and break down walls that people often have against Christianity. The wider city needs to see Christians doing something that they deem good and helpful to them. And this helps us break down walls to be able to talk about our faith and why our faith is important. Talk more about that later. Green Lane Care, a place with our Christian counselors and a wellbeing center. Again, that would come under our CAP umbrella as well, just working in a whole range of different ways to provide a center called Green Lane Care. I know it's a little snapshot of something much bigger, but we'll talk more about that later. New generation impact, also our older adult impact. I mean, when you have 92,000 people in Roger's generation who don't want to be the seniors, but have a lot of questions about life, about finance, about what retirement looks like or doesn't look like, around even his aging mum and dad and how to care for them, wanting to provide a lot of help for people like Roger to be able to reflect on those type of things in life, so that we can have a church full of other Rogers who are dealing with those same issues too. Imagine again a church, diverse communities living out the gospel together. I mean, this is us. We're already started. We're already diverse. It's just fueling that, allowing all of these things that we're doing to grow, and dreaming about what all of us can do to reach other types of people in our city. So where to from here? Well, first just catch your breath for a minute. Because I know I've gone like 100 miles per hour, huge amount of data. But let's break it down. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and I understand you can be, a lot of data, please don't fret. Just realize we're actually well on our way in all of this already. It might sound like there's huge distance to go, but actually we're doing a number of these things already. It's just the next steps we're talking about along that journey. And we have a dynamic staff team and various leaders here within our church, all being able to shape these different things. Pretty exciting what we can do together. Secondly, if you have some questions, there's 3 different Q&A times you can come to, both morning and night. They're listed down here on this booklet. And so you can just come along to those. You don't need to sign up or anything. You just come along to it. And there they are, right on the back there. If you've got questions, you can come along, talk. I'll be there to talk to any question that you've got. What are the next steps? A lot of data. Let's just bring that down to one simple thing in each of those arrows that means something for now. So, come. I want us all to come next week because we're kicking off this series called Eastergram, where we will be stepping into these reflections, these snapshots of this incredible work, this incredible love of God shown and expressed through who Jesus is and the work of the cross. I want to take these next few weeks to reflect on that. And I want to be honest with you, I haven't been as excited about a series like this one for years. Just what it's doing in my own soul currently, and just looking forward to sharing with you next week. And Brian and I will be kind of tag teaching on that. And there's a daily devotion through that. There's small group questions. But just come ready to receive and allow the Spirit of God to fill your tank, nourish your soul. Second thing, connect. Next week when you come, we'll be talking about cell groups. Come ready to sign up to a new group. Just to commit to this term. You don't have to commit for the whole year, just commit to this term. And again, if you've got young kids, we'll take care of the babysitting costs for you because we really want you to connect, to grow. We'll have a devotional booklet for you next week around Eastergram. You can pick up one of those. And then today, you've got Right Now Media. So you don't look at that email when it comes into your inbox today. If you're not on our database, sign up in the foyer afterwards. Make sure that you can get that. And finally, impact. If you're currently serving here, just keep on doing what you're doing. If you're not currently serving, over the next couple of weeks, really the next month, we'll talk about a whole range of different opportunities where you might step in and serve, because it takes all of us to pull this off. It's not about currently people who are serving stepping up further because they're already serving, but others of us that aren't, to look at new opportunities. And we're really happy if you just give something a try and then to be up front and go, that's not me so much, is there something else? And we'll kind of move you around till you find something you just love doing. You're passionate, be fine. And we'll talk about those opportunities the month ahead. So serving, but also making an impact by giving. Lots of people here who give generously through the offerings on Sunday and through automatic payments. This vision, though, will require an increase in our budget for sure. And just ask that if you're already giving to our church, you might just review that and go, I haven't really reviewed that. It's kind of the same as it was, 2-3 years ago, and my salary's gone up. I could probably review that. Maybe you'd be able to do that today and kind of change the automatic payment or something and set that up to help us out. Or maybe you're here and haven't wondered about what to do. You can just go to our website, all the details about how to set up an automatic payment, how to give here. But effectively, where we are is what we're able to do as a church. But pretty exciting if we can pull all these things off together as a church family and make a significant impact for others. So imagine what it looks like to go beyond. Imagine seeing a ton more of these faces, of Solomon, of William, of Elijah, of Connie, of Steph and Dave, of Nisha, of Roger, of Noah, and Zach and his brother. All these different people around that can make a significant difference. Imagine what it is to be a church of diverse communities living out the gospel together. So let's go beyond, where we ask the Spirit of God to use each one of us as ordinary people, and by His Spirit that we could do something extraordinary. But if you can stand together, loved us to say this this verse out loud together. A confession of our faith, confession of what God can do among us to go even beyond what we can imagine. Can we say this together? And then we're going to come and sing this final song. Out loud. Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. Glory to him in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Let's sing together.